Hi, I'm Emily. Becoming a mother should have been my brightest moment, but it plunged me into darkness. Just 3 days after giving birth to my fragile baby, my parents cast me out. "You're a disgrace," my mother hissed, her voice like ice. My father stood silent, avoiding my gaze. Still aching from labor, I pleaded, but they shut the door, leaving me clutching my newborn in the biting night air. The lock clicked, a sound that still haunts me. Unknown to them, the father of my child watched from his car across the street, his eyes tracing every cruel second. He saw it all, and something shifted in him. If this moves you, please subscribe, like this video, and tell me where in the world you're listening from. I truly want to know who hears this story. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I never thought I'd get pregnant at 22, still living under my parents' roof, no steady job, with a boyfriend they barely tolerated. But when I saw those two pink lines, my world tilted. I sat on the bathroom floor, the test trembling in my hand, wondering how I'd tell them. My parents, strict, traditional, obsessed with what the neighbors would think. I knew they'd see this as a blemish on their perfect reputation. For weeks, I hid it. Baggy sweaters, excuses about feeling sick. But secrets like that don't stay buried. One evening, my mother found the test I'd foolishly left in the trash. The silence when she confronted me was worse than any scream. My father's face turned to stone, and my mother's eyes blazed with disappointment. "How could you?" she whispered, as if I'd betrayed them on purpose. They didn't kick me out right away. No, that would have looked bad. Instead, they forgave me, temporarily. It was a cold, calculated forgiveness, just to keep the neighbors from talking. "We'll handle this quietly," my father said, his voice clipped. But there was no warmth, no support, just shame. Then came the day my mother sat me down, her tone eerily calm. "You should consider getting rid of it," she said, dodging the word abortion. I stared at her, my heart pounding. "No," I said, surprised by my own firmness. "I'm keeping the baby." Her face tightened, but she didn't argue then. After that, the insults started. Little jabs at first, then full-on assaults. "You're a disgrace to this family," my mother would say, her words cutting like knives. "I wish you'd never been born," she spat once, when I dared ask for help with a crib. Each time, I swallowed the hurt, telling myself it was just their fear speaking, but it sliced deep. And Jake, the baby's father? They never mentioned him. To them, he was worthless, a broke musician with no future. They'd driven him off months ago, forbade me from seeing him. I missed him terribly, but I didn't dare reach out. I thought I had to face this alone. Little did I know, he was never far away. Just 3 days after giving birth, I was still in pain, weak, the stitches from labor barely holding me together. Every step was agony. The baby, little Lily, was tiny and fragile, crying through the nights, and so was I. Silently, in the dark of my room. I thought my parents' silence meant reluctant acceptance, but I was wrong. One evening, as I nursed her, my mother walked in, her face like ice. "You need to leave," she said, her voice flat, emotionless. I looked up, stunned. "Leave? To where?" I stammered, my heart racing. "Out of this house, now!" My father stood behind her, eyes on the floor, saying nothing. I begged, tears streaming. "Please, I just gave birth. I can't." But she cut me off. "You've done enough to ruin this family. Go, before the neighbors start talking." I clutched Lily tighter, her cries piercing the air, as if she sensed my terror. I had no coat, no money, nowhere to go. But they didn't care. My father grabbed my arm, pulled me from the room, down the stairs, to the front door. I stumbled, trying to balance with the baby in my arms. "Don't do this," I sobbed, but my voice was lost in the howling wind. They shoved me out into the freezing night. The door slammed shut behind me, a final brutal sound. I stood there, shivering, my breath fogging in the cold air. The darkness enveloped me, only the dim streetlight casting shadows on the pavement. I felt the postpartum blood trickling down my leg, but I didn't dare move. Lily wailed louder, wrapped in a thin blanket, and I tried to soothe her, but my hands shook so badly I could barely hold her. I looked around, desperate for help. The neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, stood at her window, her eyes meeting mine for a second. Then she drew the curtains, turning away. No one wanted to get involved with the disgraced girl anymore. I felt more alone than ever, abandoned in this cold, indifferent world. I didn't know what to do, where to go. Jake, Lily's father, had been driven away months ago, and I had no idea where he was. I thought I'd lost everything, but I didn't know that in the shadows, a car was parked nearby. Inside, Jake sat still, his hands gripping the steering wheel, his eyes fixed on me. He had been watching from afar, seeing it all, the cruelty of my parents, the neighbors' indifference, my pain. He hadn't left like they thought. He was there, quietly waiting, ready to step in when I needed him most. I stood there, trembling in the freezing cold, clutching little Lily tightly as she wailed in my arms. The night felt endless, and despair had wrapped itself around me like a heavy cloak. My family had turned me away, slamming the door on me and my baby without a second thought. I had nowhere to go, no one to turn to, or so I thought. Then, out of the shadows, a figure appeared. My heart raced. At first, I feared it was just my tired mind playing tricks, but as he stepped into the dim glow of the streetlight, I knew him instantly. It was Jake, Lily's father. He approached me with steady steps, his face a mix of sorrow and resolve. Before I could say anything, he pulled me and Lily into his arms, holding us tightly. His embrace was warm, strong, and so desperately needed, like a lifeline in the storm. "I'm here," he whispered, his voice calm but firm. "I've always been here." Tears streamed down my cheeks as I looked up at him. They kicked me out," I managed to say, my voice breaking. "I don't know what to do." Jake's jaw tightened, but his grip on us didn't falter. "I saw it all," he said quietly. "I was in my car, watching from across the street. I couldn't believe they'd do this to you, to us." He took a deep breath, steadying himself. I waited, hoping they'd come to their senses. When they didn't, I knew it was time. He gently guided me to his car, helping me settle Lily into a makeshift seat he'd prepared. As we drove away from the house that no longer welcomed me, I felt a strange blend of relief and uncertainty. Where were we going? What would happen now? Sensing my worry, Jake glanced at me with a small, reassuring smile. "I've been working on something," he said. "While you were pregnant, I wasn't just gone. I've been building something for us, quietly, for our future." I stared at him, surprised. "What do you mean?" He chuckled softly, the sound warm in the quiet car. "A tech startup. It's small, but it's mine, and it's growing. I've poured everything into it. And now, I have a place for us." Over the next few years, Jake's startup took off in ways I never dared to dream. What began as a flicker of an idea, scribbled on napkins in our cramped apartment, grew into something real, something powerful. His knack for solving problems with technology caught the eye of big investors, and soon he was a funded founder, leading a team of brilliant minds. It wasn't easy. There were sleepless nights, tight budgets, and times when we wondered if we'd make it. But we did. Together, we pushed through every hurdle. Jake's relentless drive and my quiet support turned that flicker into a flame. We traded our tiny apartment for a modest townhouse, but even that felt like a stepping stone. His company kept growing, and with it, so did our possibilities. Then came the house. We'd been searching for a bigger place, somewhere Lily could run free and grow into herself, a home that felt like a reward for all we'd built. One listing stopped me cold. A grand, elegant house in the upscale neighborhood my parents used to idolize. I knew it instantly. The sprawling estate they'd drive by on Sundays, gazing at its towering windows and manicured lawn, calling it the pinnacle of success. They could never afford it, but I could now. When I showed Jake, he didn't hesitate. "Let's make it ours," he said. And we did. To mark the milestone, we threw an open house. Friends and colleagues filled the rooms with laughter and congratulations, Lily darting between legs with her boundless energy. I'd invited my parents too, though I wasn't sure they'd show. Part of me wanted them to see what we'd done, not out of spite, but as proof of what resilience could build. When the doorbell rang and I saw them on the porch, my breath caught. My mother's eyes widened, drinking in the sight of their old dreams standing before her. My father squared his shoulders, but I caught the flicker of shock in his face. They stepped inside, taking in the polished floors, the high ceilings, the life they'd carved out. It wasn't until they saw me greeting guests beside Jake that it hit them. This wasn't a visit to someone else's triumph. It was ours. My mother approached me first, her voice shaky. "Emily, I didn't know. This is incredible." She faltered, then added, "I'm sorry for everything. We were wrong." My father lingered beside her, clearing his throat like it could erase the past. "Didn't expect this," he said, forcing a casual tone. "You've done well for yourselves." I met their eyes, a storm of pride and old hurt swirling inside me. But I didn't need their guilt or their praise. I smiled, just enough, not too much, and said, "We've done well. That's all you need to know. No blame, no forgiveness, just the truth, sharp and clear. I'd moved beyond their reach, and that was my strength." The house was still, save for the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. I sat in the living room, my favorite spot by the big windows that framed the garden. Outside, golden leaves drifted down, a quiet sign that time moves forward. And so had we. The silence wrapped around me like a warm blanket, steady and sure. I let my mind drift back to that night, the one that broke me open. The cold bit at my skin, Lily clutched tight in my arms, the sting of rejection sharper than the wind. I'd been lost then, a shadow with nowhere to turn. But Jake found me, a steady hand in the dark, and step by step, we carved out something new. It wasn't smooth. There were nights we faltered, days the past pressed heavy on my chest. Yet we pressed on, with Lily's laughter lighting the way. Now I looked around. The bookshelf held Jake's tech manuals next to my novels, a mix of who we were. Toys lay scattered on the rug, proof of life spilling over. Photos lined the walls, each one a marker of days we'd claimed as ours. This was no longer just a house. It was a home, built from grit and grace, the one that saw me whole. I rose and crossed to the mantel where a small frame waited. Our wedding photo, me and Jake, side by side, Lily giggling between us under a bright sun. We weren't perfect, but we were real. I lifted it gently, feeling its weight, not just the wood, but the promise it held. Then I set it down on the coffee table, right in the center. No words, no fanfare, just a quiet truth. This was my family now, the one I'd chosen, the one that saw me whole. Sitting back, I felt the afternoon light spill over me, warm and soft. Peace settled in, not loud or grand, but deep. We'd turned pain into something solid, something good. Not despite where I'd been, but because of where I'd arrived. With them. I traced the photo's edge, a faint smile tugging at my lips. Our story lived in every moment we'd fought for, every quiet joy we'd found. Family isn't always where you came from, I thought, the words sinking in like a heartbeat. Sometimes it's where you're finally seen,